Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Ari. Okay guys, so today I want to talk just a little bit about conversion therapy. Before I talk about it, I want to give you a little bit of a background and why this is coming up, because it's not just going to be general. I want to talk about something very specific. So I'd seen where something had been retweeted by the only way I can describe it is someone whom we would categorize as a TERF, a trans-exclusionary radical feminist. And she was posting this, I guess you would call it petition. It's not really a petition, but it's a website of a woman who is encouraging people to contact the state of New Jersey to have the stipulations on have the New Jersey conversion therapy ban changed. So a little bit of background on that. I have the date down here when it was passed, but I honestly don't remember. I want to say it was in 2015, maybe. I'm lost on the date, but New Jersey passed a ban on conversion therapy, and in the legislation, it includes any type of conversion therapy that includes trying to change someone's sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about the lady who's doing this little website, and I'm not going to tell you anything on the name. I'm not going to tell you the website because I'm not going to publicize this website as far as giving people directions on how to get to it. I'm not going to give her that pleasure. But here are a few details. On one page, she gives an about page where she talks about kind of what's driving her reasoning behind going on this tangent. And so she says that her son, her words, came out as transgender when they were 20 years old. She, throughout this, describes the whole thing as confusion, and even says that she told her child that she wanted to get them help, and that the child, the adult child, because we're talking a 20-year-old, assumed that she meant help in regards to acceptance. But she very clearly says that that was not her intention, that her intention for help was to make them cisgender. So it was a very interesting situation. So she says she admits that her child was adamant about changing their gender. She said she watched a bunch of videos about how the body changes on HRT and surgical procedures, and she says they made her sick to watch and see the changes. She says she insists that the child showed zero signs of dysphoria as a child. When her child went into therapy, and I guess I guess they were in college, and they went into therapy through the college, and they signed over a disclosure agreement allowing the therapist to share information with the mother. She says the child became verbally abusive when anyone's opinions didn't match their own. She says that she asked the therapist to work towards basically changing the child's gender identity, and of course the therapist refused and let her know that that was actually illegal in the state of New Jersey. So after that, she went and she looked into what the law said. She refers to the efforts to basically conform someone's body to their gender identity, whether it be HRT or various surgeries, as mutilations and says that SRS is cruel and barbaric. She advocates that orientation and identity shouldn't fall under the same banner. And she says that while it may be too late to help her son, but she wants the state to remove the gender identity or expression language from the law. So she seems incredibly comfortable with the idea of a ban, and she repeatedly says this. She's very comfortable with a ban on any type of reparative therapy as far as sexual orientation. Where she has an issue with it is when it includes trans people. So just goes to show you, you can't always trust that because someone says that they are an LGBT ally. There are a lot of times when what they really mean is they're an LGB ally or LG. So, you know, it's not always so cut and dry. So, you know, my thoughts on this particular story. Okay, well, first of all, you know, this mother starts from the very beginning, being dishonest with her child, openly attempting to sabotage her child's transition behind their back. You know, she abused the trust that her child had in her because, you know, this was an adult child who had no requirement to allow her mother to read or to have any type of disclosure on the therapy. But she did so because she had this trust in her mom, and her mom turned back around and abused that trust and was dishonest with it. You know, referring to things like, you know, body mutilation, or even in some places, you know, she makes this whole point that a trans person speaking trans feminine from her perspective will never be a real woman. Basically, that it's a counterfeit. And then when she talks about her child being abusive, verbally abusive, you know, after you hear all these things that she's saying, can you get a little bit of an idea of what this verbally abusive actually looks like? I can only imagine that this is basically a child who is telling her or anyone else off who are directing transphobia her direction. And who the hell can blame her? You know? So, I want to talk about, like, conversion therapy in general here just a little bit now that I've went through this whole story and what kind of motivated me to create this video. So what is conversion therapy? Well, in a nutshell, it's this idea that through various forms of therapy, and it takes a lot of different formats, that a therapist can somehow change a person from gay to straight, or from transgender to cisgender. And conversion therapy has a pretty long and pretty disastrous history, at least here in the United States, and I'm sure elsewhere, but I'm mostly familiar with the situations here in the States. So it is not at all endorsed by any psychological or medical association. As a matter of fact, the American, oh my God, psychological, whatever, the APA, have actually come out and said that conversion therapy actually has a significant threat of danger to the person. Because what it really does is it tears the person down. It instills this guilt about something that they have no ability to change, and yet somehow when they fail at changing it, that all becomes their fault. It decreases, like I said, they have guilt, it decreases self-esteem, and over the history of conversion therapy, the biggest successes have been in changing a living LGBT person into an LGBT corpse. It increases the risk of suicide. And the biggest thing about it is it really is false advertising, because it simply cannot change who you are. Yes, sometimes, and they will pull up these very rare examples of someone who has been helped by conversion therapy, but 9 times out of 10, what you find is you only change the outside as far as what people see. You know, when it has to do with sexual orientation, you find that gay man who goes back into the closet, gets into a relationship with a woman, and ends up, frankly, causing damage to more than one life. Their own life, their partner's life, their children's lives, when they just can't make it work because it's not who they are. And then they end up, forcing this partner and themselves through divorces and rediscovering who they are. It simply is not functional. Now, there are a lot of weird methods that they do in conversion therapy, everything from your traditional talk therapy to really seen some weird ones that has to do with basically mommy or daddy issues. And I'm not saying that people don't have parental issues, but they make that the focus. And things as crazy as, screaming at this thing that's supposed to represent your mother, because there's still this tendency to go with this whole Freudian idea that someone is, if you're a gay man, then you had an overbearing mother. I still don't know what it means if you're a lesbian woman. Was your mother overbearing or your father? I don't know. But it goes off of all these things. It ends up causing damages to families because on top of that, something that was no one's fault, something that's not even a problem, ends up getting blamed either on the person themselves or on the person's family. It is dangerous and disgusting. And a lot of these organizations have closed down over the years, but there are still a lot that exist. Exodus International, which was one of the biggest conversion therapy organizations, finally closed their doors, closed up shop, and no longer exist. But even with these conversion therapy laws, the problem is they only ban this practice with licensed therapists. So if you do it under a religious umbrella, if you do it in a pastor or a rabbi or an imam's office, then there is no ban on the practice. If it's a minister and it's a religious thing because of getting involved in religious expression. The problem is it's not religious expression. They cover it with religion to try to get through all of it and to try to make it seem acceptable. But what it is it's junk science that causes significant damage. So to this woman who is seeking to remove this, and to parents out there who maybe your child, whether they're an adult child or an underage child, have come out to you as trans, or even as lesbian, gay, bisexual, and etc. If you are thinking that you need to fix your child because of this, if you are thinking of fixing them through conversion therapy, there is absolutely something that is broken in that relationship. But what is broken is you. You have a broken ideology about your child. You've got to learn to show support. I highly encourage therapy, but real, reputable therapy that will teach a trans child, a trans young adult, or even those of us who are older who still have years of internalized transphobia to unpack, that will help people learn to accept themselves, that will help people learn to put away all the damage that's been done to them through all of this prejudice and this bigotry. That is what real therapy does. It helps you move forward in life. It helps you become productive. Now, on this lady talking about surgeries and etc., and referring to all of this as mutilation and that she became physically sick, listen, just because you are physically and you are personally repulsed by something does not mean that that shouldn't be allowed for that person. There are a lot of things that I am physically repulsed by, that I just, ugh, give it a second. Think about your parents having sex. I'm sure that's probably a little bit repulsive to you, but guess what? They did it at least once if you're watching this video, unless you were born via artificial insemination. It happened somewhere. So just because you might be disgusted of that thought doesn't mean your parents should be banned from having sex because it personally disgusts you. As for mutilation, I understand the idea of mutilating one's body, but that is so subjective. I've heard people who talk about a tattoo or a piercing as mutilating your body when it's not. It's a form of expression. I've went through the HRT. I'm looking at going through breast augmentation. I have seen physical changes, both above and below, through this time period. It is not a mutilation to me. What it does is it makes it easier for me to live my life and to be comfortable in my own skin. So you see it as a mutilation of my body. But guess what? You don't live in my body. I do. This is me. So I may not like the way you renovate your house, but it's none of my business because I don't live there. You may not like what I do to my body, but it's none of your business because you don't live in this body. You don't have to look at it. If you're looking at it on camera right now and you don't like talking about or hearing about, things that have to do with trans people, you have an option. Unsubscribe and don't watch my channel. It's really simple. But you don't get to decide it for me. I deserve the right, and every person deserves the right to make those adjustments to make it where they're going to be able to walk through life. These are medical procedures. These are not quacks. We go through a long process to be able to do any sort of surgical procedure when you're transgender. Things that cisgender people can do, walk off the street and tell somebody I want it and go and basically have it done. We have to jump through hoops to do it. So we have things we're going through to get here. But we deserve to be comfortable in our own skin. Conversion therapy does not do that. It does the very opposite. Instead of making you feel more comfortable and helping you to achieve what you need to, it teaches you to hate yourself. And unless you hate your child, don't instill that in them. Embrace acceptance. Embrace diversity. And let your child be who they need to be. Because otherwise, parents, you may end up never having to deal with a trans child. But that might be because you end up dealing with a dead child. The suicide is a significant risk for people who aren't accepted, for people who aren't allowed to transition. Don't be that person. Care enough about your child to where it doesn't matter if you're ending up with a son or a daughter. All that matters is the child you brought into the world is happy, healthy, and living their life. That's what parents do. So anyway, guys, that is my whole, I don't know if it's a rant or not, on this story that I came across. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please, if you haven't already, click the subscribe button. I really appreciate each and every one of you who have subscribed to the channel. We may be small, but you know, that doesn't mean we can't make an impact on this channel. I'll end with my quote from Kesha. Don't let the bastards get you down. Be yourself. Don't let your family stand in your way. Don't let society stand in your way. And don't let your own fears and insecurities stand in your way. Living authentically is important, and you are worth every bit of it. Anyway, that is it for today. I love you guys, and until the next video, goodbye.